Vlad the Impaler, known as the real Dracula, is a name that sends chills down our spines. This 15th century prince was not just a ruler, he was a figure of pure terror. His reign was filled with brutal acts, including impalement, where enemies faced a horrific fate. Many feared him so much that they would rather die than fall into his hands. But what made Vlad turn into such a cruel leader? To understand this, we need to look at his early life. Born into a world filled with conflict and betrayal, Vlad faced many challenges. His family struggled for power, and he often found himself surrounded by enemies. These hardships shaped him into a ruthless prince, and his desire for revenge grew stronger with each passing year. Vlad's castle still stands today, surrounded by stories of fear and darkness. Each piece of his past reveals a man driven by a thirst for power. What pushed him to become the prince of pure terror? The truth lies in his childhood, where pain and betrayal planted the seeds of cruelty. To uncover how his early life turned this prince into a symbol of fear for generations. Name. The name Dracula is now mainly associated with vampires. But for centuries, it was known as the nickname of Vlad III, a historical figure who left a lasting mark on history. In the 15th century, people referred to him as Dracula, Dracuglia, or Dracula in various stories and reports. Vlad himself signed letters as Dracula or Dracula in the late 1470s. His name comes from his father's nickname, Vlad Dracula, which means Vlad the Dragon in medieval Romanian. His father received this name after joining the Order of the Dragon, a group formed to fight against the Ottoman Empire. In modern Romanian, the word Dracul means the devil, which added to Vlad's fearsome reputation. In Romanian history, Vlad III is also known as Vlad Teeps, which means Vlad the Impaler. This nickname comes from his preferred method of execution, which was impalement. Around 1500, an Ottoman writer named Tursun Beg referred to him as Kazikli Voivoda, meaning Impaler Lord. This name was also used by Mircea the Shepherd, the voivode of Wallachia, in a letter dated April 1, 1551. Early life. Vlad was the second legitimate son of Vlad II Dracula. His father was an illegitimate son of Mircea I of Wallachia. Vlad II earned the nickname Dracul for being a member of the Order of the Dragon, a military group established by Sigismund of Luxembourg, King of Hungary. This group was dedicated to stopping the Ottoman advance into Europe. Vlad III was likely born between 1428 and 1431, as he was old enough to be a candidate for the throne of Wallachia in 1448. It is believed that he was born after his father settled in Transylvania in 1429. Historian Radu Florescu suggests that Vlad was born in the town of Sighisoara, which was part of the Kingdom of Hungary at that time. His father lived in a 3-story stone house there from 1431 to 1435. Modern historians debate Vlad's mother's identity. She could have been a daughter or relative of Alexander I of Moldavia, or she might have been Vlad II's unknown first wife. A simple 3-story house. The house in Sighisoara's main square is where Vlad's father lived between 1431 and 1435. After his half-brother Alexander I Aldea died in 1436, Vlad II Dracula took control of Wallachia. One of his documents from January 20, 1437, mentions Vlad III and his elder brother, Mircea, as their father's firstborn sons. They are mentioned in 4 more documents between 1437 and 1439, with the last one also mentioning their younger brother, Radu. In March 1442, after a meeting with John Hunyadi, voivode of Transylvania, Vlad II Dracula chose not to support an Ottoman invasion of Transylvania. As a result, Sultan Murad II ordered him to come to Gallipoli to show his loyalty. Vlad and Radu accompanied their father to the Ottoman Empire, where they were imprisoned. Vlad Dracula was released before the year ended, but Vlad and Radu remained as hostages to secure their father's loyalty. They were held in the fortress of Egrigaz, according to contemporary Ottoman records. Their lives were at risk after their father supported Vladislaus, the King of Poland and Hungary, against the Ottoman Empire during the Crusade of Varna in 1444. Vlad II Dracula feared that his sons would be killed to maintain peace for Christians. But neither Vlad nor Radu suffered any harm after their father's rebellion. In 1446 or 1447, Vlad Dracula recognized the Sultan's authority again and promised to pay a yearly tribute. By then, John Hunyadi had become the regent governor of Hungary. In November 1447, he invaded Wallachia. The Byzantine historian Michael Critobulus recorded that Vlad and Radu fled to the Ottoman Empire, suggesting that the Sultan allowed them to return after their father paid tribute. Tragically, Vlad Dracula and his eldest son, Mircea, were murdered. Hunyadi then placed Vladislav II, the son of Vlad Dracula's cousin, Dan II, as the ruler of Wallachia. Reigns. First rule. Around 1390, the lands ruled by Vlad the Impaler's grandfather, Mircea I of Wallachia, included Wallachia, Dobruja, and 3 fiefs in the Kingdom of Hungary. However, before Vlad's reign, the Ottomans had taken control of the territories on the right side of the Danube River. When Vlad's father and elder brother passed away, he became a possible claimant to the throne of Wallachia. In September 1448, Vladislav II of Wallachia joined forces with John Hunyadi to launch a campaign against the Ottoman Empire. Seizing the opportunity while his opponents were away, Vlad led an Ottoman army into Wallachia in early October. Unfortunately, he learned that the Ottomans had taken control of the fortress of Giurgiu on the Danube and fortified it. During this time, the Ottomans defeated Hunyadi's forces at the Battle of Kosovo, which took place between October 17th and 18th. Nicholas Vizocnai, Hunyadi's deputy, urged Vlad to meet him in Transylvania, but Vlad declined. When Vladislav II returned to Wallachia with the remnants of his army, Vlad was ultimately forced to flee to the Ottoman Empire by December 7, 1448. Vlad expressed his situation in a letter to the councillors of Brasov, explaining, "We bring you the news that Nicholas Vizocnai writes to us and asks us to be so kind as to come to him until John Hunyadi returns from the war. We are unable to do this because an emissary from Nicopolis came to us and said with great certainty that Murad II had defeated Hunyadi. If we come to Vizocnai now, the Ottomans could come and kill both you and us. Therefore, we ask you to have patience until we see what has happened to Hunyadi. If he returns from the war, we will meet him, and we will make peace with him. But if you will be our enemies now, and if something happens, you will have to answer for it before God." In exile. After his fall, Vlad first settled in Edirne, in the Ottoman Empire. Soon after, he moved to Moldavia, where his father's brother-in-law, Bogdan II, was supported by John Hunyadi to take the throne in autumn 1449. However, when Bogdan was assassinated by Peter III Aaron in October 1451, Bogdan's son, Stephen, fled to Transylvania with Vlad to seek help from Hunyadi. Despite Vlad's efforts, Hunyadi made a 3-year truce with the Ottoman Empire on November 20, 1451. This truce acknowledged the rights of the Wallachian boyars to elect a successor to Vladislav II if he were to die. Vlad wanted to settle in Brasov, a center for the Wallachian boyars who had been expelled by Vladislav II. But Hunyadi prohibited the townspeople from providing him shelter on February 6, 1452. Vlad returned to Moldavia, where Alexandril had deposed Peter Aaron. The details of Vlad's life during the subsequent years are unclear. However, he must have returned to Hungary before July 3, 1456. On that date, Hunyadi informed the people of Brasov that he had put Vlad in charge of defending the Transylvanian border. Second rule. Consolidation. The exact circumstances and timing of Vlad's return to Wallachia remain unclear. He invaded Wallachia with support from Hungary in either April, July, or August 1456. During this invasion, Vladislav II died. On September 10, Vlad sent his first known letter as the voivode of Wallachia to the burghers of Brasov. In this letter, he promised to protect them from any Ottoman invasions of Transylvania, while also asking for their help in case the Ottomans took control of Wallachia. He expressed a strong belief in the power of authority, stating that When a man or a prince is strong and powerful, he can make peace as he wishes, but when he is weak, a stronger one will come and do as he pleases. Sources, including the Chronicle of Leonikos Chalkokondyles, indicate that hundreds or even thousands of people were executed under Vlad's orders at the start of his reign. He initiated a purge against the boyars involved in the murder of his father and older brother or those he suspected of plotting against him. According to Chalkokondyles, Vlad significantly changed the political landscape of Wallachia, redistributing the money and property of his victims to his loyal supporters. Records show that only 2 members of the princely council, Vojko Dobrida and Iova, maintained their positions between 1457 and 1461. Conflict with the Saxons. Vlad sent the customary tribute to the Ottoman Sultan. Following the death of John Hunyadi on August 11, 1456. His eldest son, Ladislaus Hunyadi, became the Captain General of Hungary. Ladislaus accused Vlad of disloyalty to the Hungarian king in a letter to the burghers of Brasov, urging them to support Vladislaus II's brother, Dan III, against Vlad. In Sibiu, the local burghers backed another claimant to the throne, a priest who claimed to be a prince's son, identified as Vlad's illegitimate brother, Vlad Kaliguril. This pretender took control of Anlis, a territory traditionally held by the rulers of Wallachia in Transylvania. On March 16, 1457, Ladislaus Hunyadi was executed by Ladislaus V of Hungary. Following this, Hunyadi's mother, Elizabeth Shalagi, and her brother, Michael Shalagi, incited a rebellion against the king. Taking advantage of the ensuing civil war in Hungary, Vlad supported Stephen, the son of Bogdan II of Moldavia, in his attempt to reclaim Moldavia in June 1457. Vlad also invaded Transylvania, raiding villages near Brasov and Sibiu. Early German accounts tell of Vlad capturing men, women, children from a Saxon village and having them impaled. Because the Transylvanian Saxons remained loyal to the king, Vlad's actions against them bolstered the position of the Shalagi family. Vlad's representatives took part in peace negotiations between Michael Shalagi and the Saxons. Under their agreement, the burghers of Brasov promised to expel Dan from their town. In return, Vlad assured that merchants from Sibiu would be allowed to trade freely in Wallachia, provided that Wallachian merchants received the same treatment in Transylvania. In a letter dated December 1, 1457, Vlad referred to Michael Shalagi as his lord and elder brother. On January 24, 1458, Matthias Corvinus, the younger brother of Ladislaus Hunyadi, was elected King of Hungary. On March 3, he instructed the burghers of Sibiu to maintain peace with Vlad. By September 20, 1459, Vlad declared himself lord and ruler over all of Wallachia and the duchies of Anlis and Figurash, indicating that he had claimed these traditional Transylvanian territories held by the rulers of Wallachia. Michael Shalagi allowed boyars loyal to Vladislav II to settle in Transylvania, but soon after, Vlad had the boyar Michael executed. In May, Vlad requested the burghers of Brasov to send craftsmen to Wallachia, but by the end of the year, his relationship with the Saxons had worsened. Some scholars theorize that the conflict arose when Vlad restricted the Saxons from entering Wallachia, forcing them to sell goods exclusively to Wallachian merchants at mandatory border fairs. Although evidence of Vlad's protectionist measures is limited, he emphasized in 1476 that he had always supported free trade during his reign. Tensions escalated when Saxons seized steel purchased by a Wallachian merchant in Brasov without payment. In retaliation, Vlad ransacked and tortured Saxon merchants. According to a letter from Basarab Lyota, the son of Dan II of Wallachia, written on January 21, 1459. Basarab, who had settled in Sigasora, claimed Wallachia for himself. Despite this, Matthias Corvinus sided with Dan III, who had returned to Brasov against Vlad. Dan III accused Vlad of impaling or burning Saxon merchants and their children in Wallachia. In Basarab Lyota's letter to the councillors of Brasov, he expressed distress over Vlad's actions, recounting how merchants from Brasov were captured and their wealth confiscated. He described the impalement of 41 merchants and the abduction of 300 boys from Brasov and Tarabarse, highlighting Vlad's cruelty. Dan III invaded Wallachia but was defeated and executed by Vlad before April 22, 1460. Vlad then launched an attack on southern Transylvania, destroying suburbs of Brasov and ordering the impalement of all captured men and women. During subsequent negotiations, Vlad demanded the expulsion or punishment of Wallachian refugees from Brasov. However, by July 26, 1460, peace was restored, and Vlad referred to the burghers of Brasov as his brothers and friends. On August 24, he invaded the regions of Amlis and Figurash to punish those who had supported Dan III. Ottoman War. Konstantin Mihailovic, a janissary in the Sultan's army, noted that Vlad refused to show loyalty to the Sultan in an unspecified year. Similarly, Renaissance historian Giovanni Maria degli Angiolelli recorded that Vlad did not pay tribute to the Sultan for 3 years. Both accounts imply that Vlad disregarded the authority of Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II around 1459. Although these records were written many years later. Tursun Beg, a secretary in the Sultan's court, claimed that Vlad turned against the Ottoman Empire only when the Sultan was away on an extended campaign in Trebizond in 1461. Tursun Beg stated that Vlad began new discussions with Matthias Corvinus, but the Sultan soon learned of this through his spies. In response, Mehmed sent an envoy named Thomas Katabalinos, also known as Yunus Bey, to Wallachia, demanding that Vlad come to Constantinople. He also secretly instructed Hamza, the Bey of Nicopolis, to capture Vlad when he crossed the Danube. Upon realizing the Sultan's deceit, Vlad captured both Hamza and Katabalinos and had them executed. After executing the Ottoman officials, Vlad confidently commanded the fortress of Giurgiu in fluent Turkish to open its gates, allowing his Wallachian soldiers to seize the fortress. He then launched an invasion into the Ottoman Empire, ravaging villages along the Danube. On February 11, 1462, he informed Matthias Corvinus of his military actions, claiming to have ordered the killing of over 23,884 Turks and Bulgarians during his campaign. Vlad sought military support from Corvinus, asserting that he had broken the peace with the Sultan in the name of the king and the Holy Crown of Hungary, aiming to preserve Christianity and strengthen the Catholic faith. By 1462, tensions had escalated between Moldavia and Wallachia, as noted in a letter from the Genoese governor of Kaffa. Upon learning of Vlad's invasion, Mehmed II assembled an army of over 150,000 troops, reportedly the second largest after the one that occupied Constantinople in 1453. This suggests that the Sultan aimed to occupy Wallachia, according to historians such as Franz Babinger, Radu Florescu, and Nicolae Stoicescu. However, it's worth noting that before the invasion, Mehmed had granted Wallachia to Vlad's brother, Radu, indicating that his primary goal was to replace Vlad as ruler. In May, the Ottoman fleet landed at Brela, the only Wallachian port on the Danube. And on June 4, 1462, the main Ottoman army crossed the Danube under the Sultan's command near Nikopol, Bulgaria. Outnumbered, Vlad employed a scorched earth strategy and retreated toward Targovist. During the night of June 16 to 17, he attempted to infiltrate the Ottoman camp to capture or kill the Sultan. Capturing or killing the Sultan could have instigated chaos among the Ottomans, potentially allowing Vlad to defeat them. Unfortunately, the Wallachians missed the Sultan's court and attacked the tents of Viziers Mahmud Pasha and Isaac instead. After failing to reach the Sultan's camp, Vlad and his men withdrew at dawn. By the end of June, Mehmed entered Targovist, only to find the town deserted. The Ottomans were horrified to discover a forest of the impaled, with thousands of stakes displaying the corpses of executed individuals. Historian Leonikos Chalkokondyles describes this scene, noting that the area of impalements stretched 17 stades long and 7 stades wide, with an estimated 20,000 men, women, and children impaled, leaving the Ottomans in shock. During the campaign, the Ottoman forces suffered from the intense summer heat and thirst. Ultimately, Mehmed decided to withdraw from Wallachia, heading back towards Brela. Meanwhile, Stephen III of Moldavia rushed to Chilia, now Kalia in Ukraine, to capture a vital fortress that housed a Hungarian garrison. Vlad also made his way to Chilia, leaving behind a contingent of 6,000 troops to slow the Sultan's advance. But the Wallachians were ultimately defeated. Stephen of Moldavia was injured during the siege and retreated to Moldavia before Vlad arrived at the fortress. While the main Ottoman army left Wallachia, Radu and his Ottoman forces remained in the Baragan plain. Radu sent messages to the Wallachians, warning them of the Sultan's potential return. Despite Vlad defeating Radu and his Ottoman allies in 2 battles over the following months, many Wallachians began to defect to Radu. Vlad retreated to the Carpathian Mountains, hoping Matthias Corvinus would assist him in reclaiming his throne. However, in mid-August, Albert of Istinmiso, deputy to the Count of the Szekelys, suggested that the Saxons recognize Radu. Radu also promised the burghers of Brasov confirmation of their commercial privileges and offered them compensation of 15,000 ducats. Imprisonment in Hungary. In November 1462, Matthias Corvinus arrived in Transylvania. He engaged in negotiations with Vlad that stretched over several weeks. However, Corvinus was reluctant to start a war against the Ottoman Empire. At his order, John Jiskra of Brandis, a Czech mercenary commander, captured Vlad near Rukar in Wallachia. To explain Vlad's imprisonment to Pope Pius II and the Venetians, who had contributed funds for a campaign against the Ottomans, Corvinus produced 3 letters. These letters, purportedly written by Vlad on November 7, 1462, were addressed to Mem II, Mahmud Pasha, and Stephen of Moldavia. In these letters, Vlad supposedly offered to ally with the Sultan's forces against Hungary if he were restored to his throne. However, many historians believe these letters were forged to justify Vlad's imprisonment. Antonio Bonfini, the court historian of Corvinus, noted that the true reasons for Vlad's imprisonment were never explained. Some historians, like Radu Florescu, point out that the letters showed signs of forgery. The writing style, the tone of submission, and the awkward phrasing were inconsistent with Vlad's known character. Florescu suggested that a Saxon priest from Brasov might have authored the forgeries. Initially, Vlad was imprisoned in Belgrade, which is now known as Alba Iulia in Romania. He was soon transferred to Visegrad, where he remained imprisoned for 14 years. There are no surviving records regarding Vlad's activities from 1462 to 1475. In the summer of 1475, Stephen III of Moldavia sent envoys to Matthias Corvinus, requesting that he release Vlad to help reclaim Wallachia from Basarab Lyota, who had allied himself with the Ottomans. Stephen aimed to install a ruler in Wallachia who opposed the Ottoman Empire, as he believed the Wallachians were as difficult to manage as the Turks were for the Moldavians. According to Slavic tales, Vlad was eventually released only after he converted to Catholicism. Third rule and death. Matthias Corvinus recognized Vlad as the rightful ruler of Wallachia but did not provide him with the military support he needed to reclaim his throne. Vlad settled in a house in Pest. One incident from his life recounts how a group of soldiers broke into his house while chasing a thief who had tried to hide there. In response, Vlad executed their commander for not asking permission to enter his home. In June 1475, Vlad moved to Transylvania, aiming to settle in Sibiu. He sent an envoy to the town in early June to arrange accommodations for himself. Meanwhile, Mehmed II recognized Basarab Lyota as the legitimate ruler of Wallachia. On September 21, Corvinus ordered the burghers of Sibiu to provide Vlad with 200 golden florins from royal revenues. However, by October, Vlad left Transylvania for Buda. During this time, Vlad purchased a house in Pécs, which became known as Dracula Haza, meaning Dracula's house in Hungarian. In January 1476, John Pondrak of Dengeleg, the voivode of Transylvania, urged the people of Brasov to send Vlad all his supporters who had settled in the town. This was prompted by a treaty concluded between Corvinus and Basarab Lyota. The Transylvanian Saxons maintained a tense relationship with Basarab and provided shelter to his opponents in the following months. In early 1476, Corvinus sent Vlad and Serbian leader Vuk Grgorevic to fight against the Ottomans in Bosnia. They successfully captured Srebrenica and other fortresses in February and March 1476. During this campaign, Vlad resorted to his notorious tactics, impaling captured Turkish soldiers and killing civilians in the towns they conquered. His forces laid waste to Srebrenica, Kuslet, and Zvornik. On July 26, 1476, Mehmed II invaded Moldavia and defeated Stephen III in the Battle of Valia Alba. In late August, Stephen Bathory and Vlad entered Moldavia, compelling the Sultan to lift the siege of Targanimt. The historian Jacob Unrest noted that Vuk Grgorevic and a member of the noble Jaksic family also joined the fight against the Ottomans in Moldavia. On September 6, 1476, Matthias Corvinus ordered the Transylvanian Saxons to support Bathory's planned invasion of Wallachia and informed them that Stephen of Moldavia would also invade. Vlad remained in Brasov, where he confirmed the commercial privileges of the local burghers on October 7, 1476. Bathory's forces captured Targovist on November 8. Stephen of Moldavia and Vlad formally confirmed their alliance, taking Bucharest and forcing Basarab Laiota to seek refuge in the Ottoman Empire on November 16. Following his victory, Vlad informed the merchants of Brasov, encouraging them to come to Wallachia. He was crowned before November 26. However, Basarab Laiota returned to Wallachia with Ottoman support. Vlad died in battle against them in late December 1476 or early January 1477. In a letter dated January 10, 1477, Stephen III of Moldavia reported that Vlad's Moldavian retinue had been massacred. According to reliable sources, Vlad's army of around 2,000 was overwhelmed and destroyed by a combined Turkish and Basarab force of 4,000 near Snagov. The circumstances of Vlad's death remain unclear. The Austrian chronicler Jacob Unrest claimed that a disguised Turkish assassin killed Vlad in his camp. In contrast, Russian statesman Fyodor Kurutzin, who spoke with Vlad's family after his death, reported that Vlad was mistakenly identified as a Turk by his own troops during battle, leading them to attack and kill him. Historians Florescu and Raymond T. McNally noted that Vlad often used disguises as a military strategy. Leonardo Botta, the Milanese ambassador to Buda, stated that the Ottomans cut Vlad's body into pieces. Historian Bonfini recorded that Vlad's head was sent to Mehmed II, where it was displayed on a stake in Constantinople. It is said that his severed head was eventually buried on Bankalar Kadezi in Karakoy. Local peasant traditions suggest that what remained of Vlad's body was discovered in the marshes of Snagov by monks from a nearby monastery. The location of Vlad's burial is uncertain. Popular tradition, first recorded in the late 19th century, suggests he was buried in the monastery of Snagov. However, excavations by Dinu V. Rossetti in 1933 found no tomb under the alleged burial site. Instead, only horse bones were discovered. Historian Konstantin Rezachevisai proposed that Vlad was most likely buried in the first church of the Kamena monastery, which he had founded and was near the battlefield where he was killed. Family. Vlad the Impaler had two wives, as noted by modern specialists. His first wife is thought to have been an illegitimate daughter of John Hunyadi, according to historian Alexandru Simon. His second wife, Justina Shalagi, was related to Matthias Corvinus and was previously married to Wenzel Pongrak of St. Miklos. They likely married around 1475. After Vlad's death, Justina remarried Pal Suki and then Janos Erdei. Vlad's eldest son, Minia, was born in 1462. His second son, who remains unnamed, was killed before 1486. Vlad's third son, Vlad Dracula, attempted to claim Wallachia around 1495, becoming the ancestor of the noble Dracula family. Legacy. Reputation for cruelty. Early accounts. Stories of Vlad's brutality began during his lifetime and were amplified after his arrest, especially by courtiers of Matthias Corvinus. The papal legate Nicolo Madrushans had already written about these tales to Pope Pius II in 1462. And 2 years later, the Pope included them in his commentaries. Some accounts suggest that Vlad would dip his bread in the blood of his impaled victims, although this may be legendary. Michael Behem, a Meistersinger, composed a lengthy poem about Vlad's actions, reportedly based on conversations with a Catholic monk who had escaped Vlad's prison. This poem, performed at the court of Frederick III, Holy Roman Emperor, in 1463, included shocking anecdotes, such as Vlad ordering the impalement of 2 monks to help them reach heaven, along with their donkey for braying after its master's deaths. Behem accused Vlad of duplicity, claiming he promised support to both Matthias Corvinus and Mehmed II but failed to deliver. In 1475, Gabriele Rangoni, the Bishop of Eger and a former papal legate, understood that Vlad had been imprisoned due to his cruelty. Rangoni reported that in prison, Vlad would catch rats to torture, unable to forget his wickedness. Antonio Bonfini recorded similar anecdotes in his Historia Pannonica around 1495, characterizing Vlad as a man of unheard cruelty and justice. German narratives. Stories highlighting Vlad's cruelty circulated in the Holy Roman Empire in Low German before 1480. These accounts, written in the early 1460s, provide detailed descriptions of Vlad's campaigns, including conflicts with the Transylvanian Saxons. They depict Vlad as a demented psychopath and a sadist. However, these stories should be approached cautiously, as they likely exaggerate Vlad's brutal acts for sensationalism. The advent of movable type printing made these narratives popular, turning them into some of the first European bestsellers. They were often illustrated with woodcuts showing horrific scenes, such as Vlad dining among the corpses of his victims. Accounts of torture. The writings detail terrifying tortures attributed to Vlad, including boiling people alive in a copper cauldron and executing women alongside their infants. Such accounts contributed to his notorious reputation. Slavic stories. There are over 20 manuscripts of the Skazany o Dracul Voivode, the tale about Voivode Dracula, written in Russian. Preserving tales originally recorded in South Slavic languages between the 15th and 18th centuries. While some anecdotes emphasize Vlad's brutality, others highlight how his cruelty enabled him to strengthen central authority in Wallachia. One story, for example, describes a golden cup that remained unstolen at a fountain because Vlad punished thieves severely. While the German stories emphasize his cruelty, the Slavic narratives also acknowledge his diplomatic successes, calling him Islamadri or evil-wise. However, the Skazany criticizes Vlad's conversion to Catholicism, attributing his downfall to this apostasy. Modern interpretation. By today's standards, Vlad's mass killings could be considered acts of genocide and war crimes. Romanian Defense Minister Ioan Mircea Pascu stated that Vlad would likely have been condemned for crimes against humanity had he been tried at Nuremberg. Possible hemolacria. Research published in 2023 suggests that Vlad may have suffered from hemolacria, a rare condition causing tears to contain blood. National hero. The Cantacuzino Chronicle was among the first Romanian historical texts to recount tales of Vlad, including his brutal punishments of boyars for the murder of his brother. It also mentions his forced labor of young boyars and their families in the construction of Poenary Castle. Local legends emerged over the centuries, including a tale about Vlad granting a rabbit skin letter to villagers who helped him escape from Poenary Castle during an Ottoman invasion. Many stories about Vlad's punishments, such as executing the lazy or poor, mirror themes found in both German and Slavic narratives. Peasants recognized his reputation for impalement but believed such harsh methods were necessary for maintaining order. Most Romanian artists and historians view Vlad as a just ruler, highlighting his efforts against criminals and unpatriotic boyars to consolidate power. Ion Budaitalinu's Tigăniata presents him as a hero fighting against various evils, while poet Mihai Eminescu urged Vlad to return from the grave to protect the Romanian people. Since the mid-19th century, historians have often portrayed Vlad as a significant Romanian ruler, emphasizing his fight for independence and rationalizing his cruelty as necessary for national interests. Alexandru Dimitri Zenopal noted that Vlad's terror was a means to stop internal conflicts, while Constantine C. Jurescu observed that Vlad's brutal methods were always justified. However, Ioan Bogdan challenged this heroic narrative in his 1896 work, critically examining Vlad's reputation, appearance and representations. Pope Pius II's representative, Niccolò Modrusa, provided the only known description of Vlad, whom he encountered in Buda. A copy of Vlad's portrait can be found in the Monster Portrait Gallery at Ambras Castle in Innsbruck. According to Florescu, the painting shows a strong, cruel, and somehow tortured man with large, deep-set, dark green, and penetrating eyes. The color of Vlad's hair is uncertain. Modrusa described him as having black hair, but the portrait appears to show him with fair hair. The image also highlights Vlad's prominent lower lip. Vlad's negative reputation in German-speaking regions is evident in several Renaissance artworks. He appears among the witnesses of St. Andrew's martyrdom in a 15th-century painting housed at the Belvedere in Vienna. A figure resembling Vlad also features as a witness to Christ in the Calvary scene within St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna. Vlad was described as not being very tall but quite stocky and strong, with a cold and fearsome appearance. He had a strong, aquiline nose, swollen nostrils, and a thin, reddish face. His very long eyelashes framed his large, wide-open green eyes, which were made to look threatening by his bushy black eyebrows. His face and chin were shaven except for a mustache. Swollen temples added to the bulk of his head. And a thick neck supported his head, from which black curly hair hung over his broad shoulders. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel, share it with your friends, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned for more intriguing stories like this one. See you in the next episode.